So let me share with you kind of what we're hoping to do with this. What I'm hoping we can do, I did appreciate the comments that you guys had. I'll try to set the record straight as far as some of the things and some of the confusion. Reading articles is kind of a good thing to be able to do, and this one was kind of had some problems. So what we'll do is we'll summarize what they were trying to do and then critique it. You'll be expected to just take notes on what we talk about here and write that up, per se. Oh dear. Got to go with the glasses.
So you want us to have this right up as part of the outline?
Yeah, so what I put for the assignment due this week is you type up what we just went over for the ANOVAs, and then this will be something different, but you can put it at the bottom of that outline. The stats part gets 60. The coverage of this article will get like 20, and you'll just kind of have a summary of each section and what we learn and how we critique it. So, with that stated...
I first want to say Casey so set my mind at ease. I thought that for our senior thesis we had to actually construct the study, and I was like,
oh my God.
I don't even understand what I'm reading. Never mind how to make this.
Yeah.
I feel much better already about it.
So, I hate wearing glasses. So, let's start this thing out here. Yeah, what we do when we turn 50 is we go like this a lot. So, let's start with this article then, and the question is, what was going on here? So, do we have any truth in terms of what was the purpose of this study?
I think I know.
Go ahead.
Okay, they wanted to find out if actually doing yoga or watching some sort of educational film about mind and body exercise, if watching some sort of educational film about mind and body exercise instead of yoga would yield the same results for postmenopausal women cardiovascular.
So would it yield the same results? That's a part of it. Let's see what else. Nope. Go ahead.
My understanding was that they weren't testing to see, like one against the other. They were testing whether or not the film class would work as a good control when they're doing the mind-body studies, because the author referenced previous controls that they've used, like meeting one-on-one with your instructors, and how those have they don't really counteract, but they have their own effects, so it's hard to use them and get accurate results.
So that is indeed the case. This was kind of a bizarre little study. It was a study when we run mind-body stuff, alternative medicine, or even when I do my asthma studies. We want to have a control group. So let's start with that. Why? So let's say I'm running an asthma study, you're doing a relaxation study. Why is it so important to have a control group? What? You need something to compare it to. So if you do, and in many of these studies, it's a paired t-test. It's a pre-post thing. You want to make sure that you measure people at the same points in time and that they do stay the same. So you need to have a good comparison group. And it's been brought up that when you're doing mind-body studies, the purpose of this trial was to find a good control group. Something to run people in that would be equitable in a lot of ways, but just not have the intervention.
So to do that instead of
Yeah, so if somebody is going through a mind-body thing, and you want to say, well, what do I need to compare it to? They're trying to develop something that maybe watching a film is a good control group. So that was their purpose. So the title actually does kind of reflect that a bit.
I feel like it's really hard to put that in words. Like even when I was trying
It
to
is.
explain it.
They have a hard reality here. We now understand, hopefully, what they wanted to do, but putting this down in words is a complicated reality, and it was hard for them to write this and hard for us to understand this. The other thing, well, we'll get to that. So that was their purpose, and their whole introduction was predicated, actually, on that. How to design an adequate control. They say it in the first sentence. Notice they're not doing APA citations, but they're actually doing AMA, American Medical Association, with the 1s and 2s. But they are actually trying to do these things, and they're saying maybe we need to compare it to this. The details aren't, don't worry about the details. Towards the end, if we're on 454 though, because it's hard to know what a control group should be, what should we see right towards the end of the introduction? In a good paper, we do actually, let me back up another step. Their thesis should be at the end. An introduction should have what the key question is. Should it go through the literature? Should an introduction go through the literature? The answer is yes, they do. It's hard to understand. That's fine. It's hard to understand that literature because it gets pretty convoluted. From my perspective, I understood what they were up to, but I know a lot about this kind of stuff already. From your level, I wouldn't say it was written really poorly, but it's just at a level that's going to be hard for you guys to grasp. Sometimes it's hard to grasp because they wrote it in a miserable way. But this was a hard reality to grasp. But at the end, it should have the thesis, and do they? The last paragraph.
Yeah,
Well, they kind of say it. We want to see if we come up with a new thing, we want to see if it's equivalent. Notice, though, the prediction here at the end of the intro. Usually when we do studies, asthma, mind, body, what do we want to find at the end of the study? If something worked, we are hoping that at the end of my asthma study or at the end of a mind body that we have a statistically significant result. That is our hope, correct? Is that the hope here?
no.
No! We're actually doing a study to see if we can find non-significance.
Which really isn't fair to do to people who are looking for significance.
Yeah, it's kind of irritating. That's why I may not choose this one again. But they were actually looking to find equivalence. So they are actually hypothesizing non-significant results to prove what they want to prove.
I think that's what made it so confusing.
Yes, I may not do this one again, but sorry, second time.
Yeah, listen, as a fat middle-aged woman, I was really hoping that watching Fit TV would make me fit.
There you go.
And look what you did.
Look what I did to you. So, let's go into methods and rationale here. What was our thought on the methods here? Hard to understand? Complicated?
The method
No,
wasn't
I'm
that
not the method.
clear.
A good method section should do what? You should be able to replicate what they did if it's a good method section. So their method section is reasonable. They say how they got people and their characteristics. They say under outcome assessments, because there was some question about that, these are the variables they measured. What's so weird about this is they actually wanted to find no differences between the groups. So they give all the stuff they measured. Is it good that they have a section on intervention?
Yes.
Yeah. They want to describe what the yoga was and actually what the educational film was. So the method was okay. Lots of details.
I honestly think it would have been harder for the group in the film study, because when you learn something, your natural inclination is to try to put it into practice.
Right?
So I would think like having the group agree not to change anything during the 8 weeks, like that, for me personally, that would have been hard.
Yeah, that would have been difficult to do. What they're saying though here is during the actual intervention, the idea of, has anybody ever taken a mind-body class, yoga, relaxation, that the idea of, okay, now we're going to do these exercises is attentionally similar to, let's come in and watch a movie and talk about it. That they actually share a lot of common characteristics, except one, you're just viewing something, the other, you're physically doing something.
Right.
But everything else is kind of constant is what they're trying to show here.
Right, and I think they
Mhm.
illustrated that well enough in the article, but I think in practice, I would expect to see, I would think that would be something that would confound the results.
It could.
Because I would think that the people watching the educational films would tend to put what they've learned into action, whether consciously or unconsciously.
They certainly could. So, yeah, it's a reasonable critique of this. In the analysis, notice on page 456, was it good that they had an analysis section here?
Yes.
Yes. Many times you say, here are the statistics I'm going to run.
Now, wouldn't the analysis be part of the results? Don't they show how they did it?
It could be. This is something good to write down potentially here, that sometimes in a method section at the end you say, here is what we did statistically. Other times you don't have as much of that, and in the results you actually say, here was the question, here's what we did statistically, and here was the result. In an experimental class, that's how it works. But this is an accepted practice. You could do it this way. So this is okay to do. But let's get to these results, because what I really want to focus on here, how did you guys, well, let's see how much time I've got on this one. Okay, I've been babbling along